Did you know you can make money out of the homeless?
Not by selling them things.
Do we have to cut them all in half?
Well, not even selling them stuff per se,
right.
Just by saying you're pro supporting homeless. So if we look at, in 2019, the UK spent over £1 billion on homelessness in 1 year. And it's
before the pandemic.
Before the pandemic, it's going up every year since, but the last figures I could find was 2019, over £1 billion. Where's that money going?
How can we get some of it?
Well, business are making a fortune out of it, from shelters to all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into some real local examples now. I've worked with rough sleepers now for nearly 2 decades, set up projects, getting them off the streets into accommodation, into employment. I even set up a library for homeless children who were living in B&B so they could sort of keep up with some of their education. Because when you become homeless, you can be moved 50, 60 miles away from your school, which means you don't go to school again for 6 months.
Right.
So you need some. So I've set up those sort of projects. Some of the things that really annoy me are some of the simplistic projects people engage in thinking they're making a difference. So the first one will be, you go to coffee shops. When this in a coffee shop and there's a sign going, why don't you buy a coffee for a homeless person? So pay it forward.
Yeah.
So buy a £4, £5, £6 coffee, buy another one. And if a homeless person walks into this shop today, we'll give them that coffee you've paid for.
I mean, it sounds sweet on the face of it.
No,
it sounds nice.
From a marketing person.
So it makes the coffee shop look good, but there is absolutely no way of guaranteeing that money is going to a homeless person. I'm sorry. So you're getting both the marketing side, makes the coffee shop look good, and the cynical lawyer here, which is that goes straight to the bottom line.
Well, I was going to say also extra profits.
Yeah, well, let's dig a bit deeper than that in a minute. So let me give you my examples and we'll dig into them. There's lots of small companies who sell socks, who sell little woolly hats. And if you buy one, we'll give a homeless person one. And they're always quite expensive to buy. Another one in Manchester, this drove me crazy. There was a pub in Manchester City Centre that opened on Christmas Day to feed the homeless. Christmas dinners sounds fantastic.
That sounds great.
Why wouldn't they do that? Why am I coming down on these examples? Let's go into some of these examples that someone who understands. If we can have the first link.
I would, but I couldn't.
Even the people who work at Starbucks to pay it forward, even they hate this scheme. And the biggest complaint is, A, it messes up the orders because we've now got a coffee. Did someone order this?
Yeah.
So they're basically saying most of these coffees go in a bin because we've made it now because we didn't know it was paying it forward coffee. And the staff are saying, we're paid that poorly. Why aren't staff don't tip us? Because they're buying coffee for an invisible homeless person. That's what the staff are saying. What am I going to say? A coffee has never helped a homeless person. For two decades working on the streets, if we could buy someone a coffee or a cup of tea and that would help a rough sleeper, believe me, we wouldn't have a problem in this country. These are complicated, broken people who need professional help and support. A coffee does nothing. Again, if you are buying them a coffee, why is that coffee full price? Why is it not half price, pay it forward? Why is it not at cost? Why is the coffee shop, goes back to your bottom line point then, why is the coffee full price?
It's not a charity, Nick. They're running a business.
And that's exactly why they're doing it. It's some virtue signaling that costs them nothing.
No, that's profitable.
It doesn't even cost them nothing.
Yeah.
It's Carl's already said it.
Yeah.
It goes straight to the bottom line because you've not. There are no goods involved here. You know, think in terms of the accounting equation and costs of goods sold. You know, you've sold something, but you haven't actually provided a product.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just pure money.
In defense of the cynical capitalist, they're selling people dreams. Actually, they're selling them the dream that they may have helped a homeless person.
Yep.
You can't put a price on that.
Have you ever been in a high-class coffee shop and seen homeless people sat there?
No.
Because you know what?
Weirdly, they're not allowed in.
They're not allowed in because they're dysfunctional, they smell, they're drug users.
And Starbucks,
and you then get the thing, this is one area where countries like Australia and the UK are different from the US. When they do let them in, you start seeing footage of what San Francisco looks like now. I went to San Francisco in September 2019. My partner and I drove the Pacific Highway. And we strongly suspect we're not going to be able to go back now, because there was a serious homelessness problem in both the major cities in San Francisco and in Los Angeles in 2019. The whole area now, a good friend of ours who lives in Los Angeles and who we took out to supper, I mean, her street, which is a very nice street in a nice part of Los Angeles called Venice, is now just a homeless encampment. She can't even walk her dog anymore.
Do you not remember a few years ago when Starbucks there was a viral video of a black guy being chucked out of a Starbucks? So he was apparently meeting with a property mogul, which is weird because, I mean, this guy didn't look like he owned any property, right? But he was meeting with this property mogul, and it was filmed, and he was kicked out because he wasn't buying a drink. And after that, Starbucks were like, "Oh, well, actually, we're just going to allow all the homeless to come in and use our toilets." Well, unsurprisingly, it was heroin all over the toilets, needles all over the place. They learned firsthand the hard way what happens when you open your stores to the homeless.
Well, McDonald's in Manchester City Centre, there's several branches, open at 7:00 in the morning, I believe. And they always have issues. They have security on the door now of McDonald's in Manchester City Centre from 7 in the morning, not because of fights or drunks.
No.
Because a homeless person.
It's the wrong time of day. I mean, pubs have their problem at when last orders are called. Yeah,
but they're using the bathrooms, shooting up, using the bathrooms as showers. So by the time they've left, the bathrooms are a complete mess, needles everywhere. So they've had to employ security. Now, it's a different argument about what do we do with these individuals. We'll get to that in a minute, but they're the issues we have in some of these chains. But buying someone a coffee or buying Starbucks an extra coffee doesn't solve anything. But the general public think they're helping, but they're not. If we have the next,
they're helping the owner.
The bottom line,
they're helping the Starbucks chain. What do you? Honestly, you're way too cynical.
So I mentioned before about hats and socks. So there's lots of these.
You're dumping on hats and socks.
Yes, there's lots of companies now advertising. If you buy one of my £12 socks, we're going to give a pair to a homeless person.
Okay.
Have you ever been in Primark? You can buy a pack of 5 socks for £1 in Primark.
They're the only socks I buy, Nick.
Well, there we go. So, but why are people buying £12 socks? This is purely a marketing ploy to pull at your heartstrings that you do nothing else for the homeless, but as long as you buy a pair of socks, you've helped a homeless person with a pair of socks.
There's one born every minute, Nick.
There is.
Going back to those Love Actually Blairites, though, right? I'm actually okay with them being totally ripped off because they believe in nonsense. And I feel that they're the sort of people who'd fall for this. So there's a part of me that kind of wants to see them getting ripped off. What now?
Them being they've got enough money to make a difference. The thing is, Nick's actually run a charity in a very poor part of Manchester, and if those idiots who are willing to spend 12 quid or whatever donated 12 quid to an actual homelessness charity, there might be a difference.
That's what annoys me. It doesn't annoy me that people are being ripped off for buying £12 socks and making them feel good. Well, if that makes you feel good, that's fine. Who am I to say you shouldn't feel good? Feel good. But if the point was you actively wanted to help, that £12 could have been sent to a frontline small charity in the city where you live. That would pay for breakfast for 30, 40 people for the day, jam and toast or something. That would have done something. You would have got those people, given them incentive to get off the streets, to access support for some free breakfast. And maybe then the support workers or social workers could have worked with you a little bit and actually moved you one step closer to a better life. This virtue signaling does absolutely nothing for the people on the streets.
But also it kind of keeps them on the streets, right? So if they're on the streets and you can get free coffee, free socks and all that, why would I need to leave the streets?
Exactly.
But if my feet are cold and I need a drink, then I actually have to go somewhere. I have motivation to do something.
People say to me all the time, I don't give money, I don't hand stuff out. I buy people a meal deal on the streets. Surely that's doing good. And to begin with, you think, well, how do you criticize that? And you criticize it like this. Those support centres are supplying hot, decent meals. So if you give someone a meal deal, that person now isn't hungry enough to visit that support centre where they could sit down at a table in chairs with a knife and fork and feel human as they're eating, because you've just enabled them to sit on a damp, wet pavement on the floor like a rat to eat the sandwich and a Mars bar. At least at the centre, they would have felt human. It's only when they're in the centre can professionals start working with them, unpicking decades of brokenness and issues and the complexities of their lives and try to work out the path they can go down. And one visit doesn't do that. We're talking dozens and dozens of visits before you start making headway. Every time you buy someone a meal deal on the street, you've stopped that person getting help that day. Again, that's what annoys me. Isn't the fact you've spent your money on socks. It's you've stopped someone getting professional help because it made you feel better that you think you did something. That's what annoys me.
So we're pro ripping off the Love Actually crowd, but we are anti preventing homeless people from actually getting help.
Exactly.
I've got to side with you on that one.
Yeah, we were just stopping them accessing help. The Christmas pub one, people had a right go at me this one.
Same principle though.
Yeah, if we go to the next link, what's wrong with Christmas Day opening your doors and getting rough sleepers in? Because the centres are closed on Christmas Day. Yeah. It's not like you've stopped them going to a centre. You haven't, so I can't complain about that. But what's wrong with this? Well,
go on then, Scrooge.
Go
on, tell me.
These individuals were rough sleeping on Christmas Eve. The rough sleepers while they're eating that meal, and they're going to be rough sleeping that night, and they're still going to find themselves homeless on Boxing Day. What's changed? Nothing has changed. You've not changed that person's life. All you've done is give them a meal on that afternoon. Now, is that damaging them? No, it's not. But on the grand scheme of things, the money spent on that project hasn't helped one person.
Well, I mean, I suppose the argument would be, well, at least they're not hungry that day. Right? So there's human compassion there.
You could argue that case. The point on this for me is it's a difference between medicine and a cure. So what this is medicine for Christmas Day.
Yeah, this is taking ibuprofen for your sore knee rather than actually going and getting it scanned and working out why you can't use the treadmill anymore, basically.
And what we need we need cures.
But on the question of Christmas Day particularly, if everything's closed, maybe I'll have some ibuprofen that day, right?
Possibly. But let's look at the people who did this. So what did they get out of this, the pub? They got a full page in the Manchester Evening News as a story. That must be worth thousands of pounds.
Yes, it is.
After Christmas, they did the follow-up. They got another full page in the Manchester Evening News. So
it's advertorial. Yes, it's that kind of thing.
So if they wanted to do something for rough sleepers, there are better things they could have done. But they picked the one where they also benefited as well. We're getting 2 pages of free advertisements in the Manchester Evening News.
Yeah, but I mean, again, they're running a business. I can't feel that cynical about it. That
is quite cynical. They're running a business, because people have. Most of the time, people have got short arms and long pockets, but on Christmas Day, they're less likely to behave like that.
On all of the other ones, I'm with you, but on this one, I'm a little more on the left on this one. Because, I mean, okay, if you're the homeless person, sure, you've made all these mistakes. You need proper help, right? But that doesn't help on Christmas morning when nothing's open and you're hungry and you're cold. And, okay, so there's a business that's prepared to do this. And in exchange, they get a bit of free advertising from the local paper. I mean, I don't see that as being a problem.
Let's say there's a choice. They can either do that, and let's say they help 30, 40 people on that afternoon.
Yeah.
Or the money they're going to spend on that, they invest that more wisely and do a different project that gets 3 people off the streets for life.
Yeah. But they're not going to invest anything to anyone getting off the streets because they're a business, right?
They're a business.
So I actually don't blame them. This is a savvy marketing move, but it also does help some people very temporarily.
I don't blame any of these businesses because they're doing what businesses do.
Yeah.
They're trying to increase their bottom line.
I'm more than happy to criticize businesses. Yeah. I just think this is really small,
These are all small, just local to me that I've had to deal with. That's why I've picked these. There's bigger issues out there, but these are small ones I've had to deal with. But for me, this just emphasizes why we have a rough sleeping problem in the UK. As in, we're never looking to fix the problem. We're always looking at sticking plasters.
That's a good point because, I mean, like you said, okay, so they spent like £500 or something feeding the homeless this day. That's half the cost of the advertising at least. And that's not someone who wants to cure the problem of homelessness because now this is a part of their business model.
Yeah. And I believe they've done it lots of Christmases since. Now, at the same time we did this in 2016, this isn't an excuse for this, but there was a football ground in Manchester, not with the 2 big ones, a small one, who worked with the council, who was putting on Christmas dinner for homeless and rough sleepers, for several hundred of them. And they arranged for transport to pick people up. So they drove minibuses to the city centre to pick people up and drive them there. The same morning, we had an organization. It wasn't the Masons. It was something similar to the Masons. I can't remember what they're called now, who drove around the city centre Christmas Day morning with 100 bottles of brandy and whiskey. And every rough sleeper they found, they gave one to and wished them happy Christmas.
Okay.
So when those minibuses turned up, these people were blottoed.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, health and safety now, we're not taking you in our...
Yeah.
All were left on the streets with no Christmas dinner because someone thought it was a good idea to go around Christmas cheer and give bottles of whiskey and brandy out.
Amazing.
And I presume, I mean, I have no expertise in this area at all, but you can presumably tell me the answer to this question, that alcoholism plays a significant role in homelessness.
Absolutely.
Homelessness. Yeah.
Drugs more so now because drugs are a lot cheaper and easier to get than alcohol. But alcohol is still a major factor. Alcohol kills people quicker than drugs kill them.
That doesn't surprise me.
I've worked with prostitution charities in Manchester, and they say the biggest issue they have is when one of the female prostitutes says, "Oh, I'm off drugs now," and tell them, "I've replaced it with vodka." It's brilliant. You're now at a so high risk of dying now. So alcohol is even more dangerous than drugs. Right. So I just want people to understand there's no quick fix to rough sleeping.
Yes.
You're going to throw a couple of coins in a cup or buy someone a sandwich or support a business that do these things. You're not helping. It just doesn't do anything. It's a waste of your time, money, and energy. Find something that works.
It also, again, just reinforces the paradigm as well, right?
Yes.
It helps them to remain where they are. It's not even that it doesn't help.
You pay organizations to do what makes their budget go up, basically.
Yeah. But you're actively retarding the ability of these people to get off of the street.
Yeah. A lot of these agencies and charities, by the way, lots of charities are bought into this, of the medicine, not the cure.
Yeah.
Because they've got £100 million budgets. Yeah. They've got chief exec at 150,000.
Well, if homeless was killed tomorrow, Nick, that's my pension gone.
Well, yeah, they've got great pensions. So we don't want to cure this because what am I doing for the job? Just like we had the LGB.
That's why Stonewall went crackers. They achieved same-sex marriage, and so their purpose had come to a natural end.
Yeah.
And the whole trans bandwagon is an attempt to remain relevant.
Yeah.
They were suffering after same-sex marriage went through. They were suffering from relevance deprivation syndrome. That's all that is. I'm sorry, it was deeply cynical, that.
Totally true, though.
Yep.
It is. If we can have the next link. So you might go, oh, is that the wrong link? What's this about? This is about if businesses will only do what they think is in their interest.
That's
so
true.
Hollywood going woke, companies going woke, they only did it because they thought it was in their interest. And now they realize it's not in their interest. You know, they're sacking the DEI leads now in Hollywood because there's no more money in it. That's what we need to do with rough sleeping and homelessness. We need to get rid of the stuff that doesn't work, but was just either woke or made us feel better. We can have the last picture. This is how you help rough sleepers. It's face-to-face contact. It's sitting down on a cold pavement and having a chat with them face-to-face, finding out what they want. It's not sitting there going, do you know what I can do for you today? Because the problem is, that's what everyone's always done for them, is told them what they need. You start building people up by having conversations, by saying, what do you want in your life? What can I do for you? Is there any suggestions? Because until you get them taking control and responsibility of their lives, nothing changes. And sometimes it's as simple as saying, do you want a tea or a coffee? Instead of going, there you go, mate, I've just given you that. Ask them what they want, because the more you do that, the more they realize their choices influence their lives.
Forcing them to think, basically.
And then once they start realizing making better decisions gives them a better life, they carry on making better decisions. But when you get to a stage where it's called learned helplessness, it's where the state has taught you to be helpless because someone's always going to do everything for you. You don't have to think.
But the entire system just treats them like a problem, right? And rather than individual people with real issues and a real backstory. Like, oh, I'm the homeless person who's here to collect the tea. I'm the homeless person that's here to collect the Christmas dinner. You're not Mark, the person who has made mistakes and has fallen on hard times. You're now in the category of homeless, so you feel yourself to be trapped there, right?
Yeah. Best example I can give you, and this will be the last thing I say on this, was I met a gentleman for the first time on Deansgate in Manchester City Centre, which is a big road in the city centre. Sat down and said, "Oh, can I have a chat?" I go, "Oh, no, I'm too busy. I'm working." I went, "You're working?" He went, "Yeah." He goes, "My job is to shake this paper cup. And when people put money in it, it makes them feel better. That's my job.
Yeah.
And it was like, you get this.
There was one of them in Swindon who had a house and a car and everything, but he would, act like a homeless person. Yep. People would give him money, and that was better than working in a proper job.
Yeah.
I saw a comedy routine years ago at when the Edinburgh Fringe was still very good, by a bloke who, admittedly, he had an advantage. He had cerebral palsy from the waist down, but normal from the waist up. So he was in a wheelchair. So he had the disabled person look. And on different days, he went to the same part of town each time with a bucket with different things written on it, to try to get people to give him money. Man in wheelchair, remember? And he had the most ridiculous things written on there. He had like, pay my mortgage. He had, my dog needs a tooth extraction. And people were just putting money into, because of man in wheelchair. And the only one, he didn't get any money for it. He had video footage of this, it was very funny. The only one where nobody would put money in his bucket, he'd written on the bucket, free Gary Glitter. That didn't work. But all the others,
I'm not surprised that
the automatic reaction of just putting money in this guy's bucket.
Right. Well, don't help the homeless.
Help the homeless in ways that are productive, not ways that damage broken individuals.
Thank you for watching that segment from the podcast of Lotus Eaters. If you enjoyed, why not visit our website, where you can get the podcast live from 1 o'clock on weekdays, in full, uncensored, and for free, as well as, for as little as £5 a month, getting access to all of our premium content and helping us keep the lights on, with series like Josh's eclectic series, Contemplations, where he discusses politics, psychology, and all sorts of other topics, including in this latest episode with Bo discussing if a country's geography is tied to its prosperity. Interesting stuff. If you'd like to see the rest of the content we're putting out, you can follow Josh on Twitter at JoshFirm, and the rest of us over at LotusEaters_com. Until next time, goodbye.